Hi, welcome back to My Journey, My Voice, and thank you to all of you who have stayed with me on this journey. I'm reflecting back on about 3 weeks ago, I shared with you concerning my mother a painting that I did called The Beginning of Evil, and I shared with you what I feel was the start of evil that affected my life and many of the other lives around me. And at that point, I shared with you that sin is sin, and when left to its end, it will only grow, and it will become more and more perverted. And so there's only one thing that can break the power of sin, and that one thing is Jesus Christ. His blood and what He did for us is the only power, true power, over sin. And so the things that I share with you, God has been so gracious to me in helping me to come to understand that people without Him are sinners. He loves the sinner, not the sin. And He loves even those who are very cruel in their acts, because He wants them to be saved and come to Him. You know, since I saw you last, I went to see the movie The Shack. And I'm going to read the book. I don't know why I missed reading that book. I'm an avid reader. But it made such an impact on my life. And it helped me to understand God's heart. And so the closer we draw to Him and the more we understand of His heart, the more we realize that we've been forgiven much. And so we need to find a place to forgive. So in the 3 weeks ago when I shared about the beginning of evil, as I just shared a few minutes ago, without the blood of Jesus to break the power of sin, it will continue. And so in my mother's life, she did not have anyone to share with her the truth about Jesus and His love and the power of His blood to break that chain of sin. And so it was a lot of years before my mother came to be saved. And I think at that point, the chain of sin had begun to be broken. And so, but prior to that point, I was born, as I shared before, the oldest of 6. And we lived for a time in a community, and in that community, there were a lot of, in my case, a lot of males that were did not know Jesus and did not know about the love of God, and who inflicted pain and suffering upon a lot of females in that community, and possibly some males, young males as well. There was this one particular person who was very much into sin, and who caused a lot of pain for a lot of people, my mother, and then also upon my life, and upon several of the people in my family who were related to me. And why we didn't speak out? Well, you hear about people who were abused, sexually abused, molested, that often they go to silence. And they do so because they take on the shame of the sin. They bear the burden that is not theirs. And so I did, because I did not know the truth. I did not understand the love of God that could heal that and forgive me, but also help me to find forgiveness in my heart for those who misused and abused me. And so, not knowing this, the enemy of my soul had power over me to cause a lot of problems in my life because of this sin. And so this one particular instance, and there were more than one, sad to say, I shared with you the painting that I did of the little girl behind the door, this one. And as you can see, that it is a dark painting. And that was an instance, one of the instances that happened to me whenever I was very, very scared. My cousins and I had been sent to clean this house. And so I was in the house and we were cleaning the house, and my part was to fold the clothes and put them away. And so in this old country house, I was folding clothes and actually enjoying my time with my cousins. But I had my ears alert. I was listening for the sound of his truck because I knew what it sounded like. And I wanted to be out of the house before he came home. So I was doing my work quickly and encouraging my cousins to do the same. And so I was folding the clothes, and I put the clothes behind a door. There were shelves, and over the shelves was a curtain that hung. And so I was putting away the clothes that I had folded, and I was trying to listen. I made sure that the front door was open so I could hear. And I don't know how, but I did not hear the truck, but I heard the voice in the kitchen. And he was asking them what were they doing, and they were telling him. And so he said, well, where is Pam? And so one of my cousins piped up and said, oh, I don't know. She was folding clothes, but I don't know. And I was so thankful that she didn't tell where I was. And so I was going to zoom out of that house. But then I could hear his footsteps coming. And I heard the sound of his boots on the floor. And so I got way down behind the door, and the door was open, and I was in the corner and kind of half between the curtain and behind the door. And needless to say, the boots got closer, and my heart was panicked, and I began to pray to God and to angels and to anyone that would listen. And so, as the sound got closer, he found me. And so, in that moment, I won't describe in detail the horror that I experienced, but I will say that suddenly I had a calm come over me, and like someone was giving me the words to say. And so I told him, and I was just a little girl. I was probably no older than probably 7 or 8 years old. I told him to back up so that I could take my little shorts off. And so I knew when he backed up that I was going to scoot out as fast as I could. And sure enough, he backed up and he gave me just enough space, and I zipped out from behind that door. I ran through the living room. I ran across the living room, across the porch, and their porch was very high. In fact, there were like 5 or 6 steps to get up to the porch. And so I remembered sailing off of the top of that porch. And in my mind, it was though I could think, oh, my feet are going, I was barefoot, and my feet are going to break or something bad is going to happen to me. And then even if I landed, how did I get the heavy gate open? So believe it or not, all this took place, and sure enough, I ran across the porch and I sailed off of the porch, and all of a sudden, I felt like I was floating, and my feet came down to the earth, but I didn't feel the impact of my feet touching the earth. And I lifted the heavy iron gate latch that was on there up, and I don't even know how I did it. And I lifted it up and I ran through it, and I had to run across this field, down a hill, and through another gate, and across a rock dirt road, and then into a field, and it had stickers and kookaburras in there. But as I closed that gate, I took off running, but I didn't feel like my feet were touching the ground. I just felt like my feet were moving, and I was going real fast, but like I couldn't feel the earth under my feet. And I ran through the next gate and across the rock path road, and I didn't feel the rocks on my feet. I ran across the what we call the lake. It was a large field that when high water would come, it would fill up. But I ran across the lake, and which had cows and bulls in it, and I was terrified of the horned cows and the bulls. And but I ran through that field, and I don't remember the feeling of anything on my feet. And I hid down in the woods until I knew that my cousins would be coming home in the old truck. They would be taking us to my uncle and aunt's house, and I could come out and make my way to my uncle and aunt's house. And so the thing about that incident that stayed with me is that the feeling that I had when I was running. For years and years, I dreamed of flying. And I would go to sleep at night and have this feeling that I was running, and then I would start flying. And so I couldn't put the pieces together. And then years later, and it hasn't been too terribly many years ago, I had a dream. And so God spoke to me through this dream. And so he gave me this picture that I want to share with you. The first one you saw, the little girl behind the door. Well, I dreamed many, many times of this angel and what the angel looked like. And so when I started painting, I painted this picture. And so you can see the angel standing there in the beautiful blue. And so in my dream, and the next morning when I woke up, it was like this, like God was speaking to my heart, and he said, do you remember when you were behind that door? I was there with you, and I carried you, and my angels carried you through the field and lifted the gate open and carried you and hid you in the woods. And I knew without a doubt that that angel had carried me, and that I flew. And I flew in the arms of that angel that day. And that peace that I didn't understand as a young child was the peace that passes all understanding that God gives. You see, I didn't know then, I do know now, that even then God was watching out for me. Now, you might say, well, where is God in my circumstance? And let me say that there's been many other circumstances in my life, some similar to that, that I didn't have that experience and I didn't get away. That day I did get away. I don't know why, but I did. And I know that God is a God of miracles, but I also know that He doesn't always use miracles, which are short-lived and temporary, in this life, but that His word and His death is a miracle in me, and that He does all things well, and He brings healing. And as I've found my voice these years later, sad to say, so many years that the enemy of my soul has kept my mouth shut and didn't allow me to tell as a child what had happened to me, as he does to so many others. But I found healing, and I have found my voice. You know, I was reading one of Max Lucado's books, And the Angels Were Silent, and something really touched my heart in something that he wrote. And this I understand, and it's so true. It says, the beauty of the cross is that it occurred on a normal day, week, involving flesh and blood people and a flesh and blood Jesus. God calls us into a real world. He doesn't communicate by performing tricks. He doesn't communicate by stacking stars in the heavens or reincarnating grandparents from their grave. He's not going to speak to you through voices in a cornfield or a little fat man in a land called Oz. There is about as much power in that as there is in a styrofoam dice hanging on your rear view mirror. God, that spoke to me because God is real. Jesus was flesh and blood, and He felt pain. And He took our pain to the cross so that we could find by His stripes that we are healed. He didn't say that He would take away all of our pain and suffering, but that He would be there with us as we went through that pain and suffering. And He would take away the sting if we would allow Him. Sad to say that I'm finding out this late in life how to let my voice be heard. And I suppose I want to say this because I don't want you to wait so many years to let your voice be heard. I hope that you'll let your voice be heard now and open up and receive the healing and the love and the forgiveness that God brings, and the healing that comes when you can forgive that person who sinned against you. I'll tell you a little bit more about my story as we go forward. God bless you, and you have a wonderful day. Bye now.